1. I live on the road full-time doing occupational health screenings. In April 2020, our regular platform was shut down, and we were sent off to different sites to do temperature screenings at different facilities during the COVID lockdowns. I was stationed near Grand Island, New York, and my company booked me a room at the Radisson for at least a month. I did not know at the time that my stay was going to end up being about 3 months. When I arrived at the hotel, I was initially disappointed because it looked really run down. The place had definitely seen better days. It immediately felt creepy. I could feel the good vibes of the past surrounding me in this hotel, but I really just attributed this to the fact that it was nearly empty because of all the COVID stuff. There clearly was maybe only 5 other people tops staying at this hotel other than myself. That guesstimate is being generous. I made myself at home in my new room with no issues my first night. I enjoyed the view of the Niagara River and spent time on the balcony. My first day temperature screening was absolutely frigid. I spent about 12 hours outdoors in about 30-degree weather, if not colder. When I returned to my room, I immediately started stripping my layers of clothes off as I headed straight to the heater so I could turn it on full blast. I really want to get the heat on so I can take a hot shower and have my room nice and warm when I get out. By this point I am half naked, and I turn around to see the adjoining door to the next room was wide open. I have no thoughts other than, oh my god, I'm naked. I also had just walked right past it. I could see into the next room, and it was clear that no one was in there. I heard or saw nothing. I was really confused, because as a person who literally lives in hotels, I know I checked that adjacent door when I checked in to make sure it was locked. I was confused because I know no one had come into my room because of COVID, but my mind never thought paranormal. I was in immediate denial, made sure that the door was locked, and proceeded to take my hot shower. After a few days in my new job placement, I started to get to know the security guards. Eventually, one asked where I was staying when they realized I wasn't local. When I told them the Radisson, he responds, "Ooh, spooky, the haunted hotel. What's happened so far?" Immediately, it felt like my heart sank to my butt. I had a flashback of the open door and got chills. He proceeded to tell me the local folklore about how a girl named Tanya used to live on the property and died in a fire. All the locals know the place is haunted. That evening, I made the mistake of Googling the hotel and found all kinds of stories about Tanya. I've always felt susceptible to paranormal activity and considered leaving for the sake of getting good rest since I was working long, weird hours. However, the next hotel was far away from my job site, and I really enjoyed my balcony with the view of the river, so I stayed. It stayed pretty quiet for a couple of weeks other than returning from work to my balcony door open a couple of times. I would ask if anyone had been in my room, but the front desk would always tell me no. A few times my Do Not Disturb tag would go missing. I still like to leave it on my door even if they tell me they're not going to enter my room. And I'd ask the front desk jokingly if the ghost took it. One employee kind of rolled her eyes and responded, "No, we keep that floor closed now." I responded, "What? The whole floor?" "Yes, the whole 4th floor." I was on the 5th. The next incident was one evening I went to take my medication. I always keep my prescription pill bottles on my desk. However, this night I could not find them. I searched my room for about 15 minutes before I noticed an empty box in the corner of the room, about 4 feet away from the desk. It was a UPS box from when my mom had sent me a package. I took a chance and decided to look inside the box and find both of my pill bottles in there. At this point, I called the front desk, asked if someone had been in my room, and again they told me no. I verbally told Tanya not to touch my things again, and went to bed. The next occurrence was by far the spookiest for me. I woke up at about 2 a.m. in instant fight-or-flight mode. My heart was racing, and I just laid still in bed waiting for something to happen. I can't explain it. I just knew. Sure as shit, about 10 seconds later, I hear a very loud and deliberate knock, knock, knock on my door. I bolted out of the bed as quick as lightning to the door, looked out the peephole and saw no one, and opened the door. Nothing, no one. This time my heart was racing and I was scared. I immediately called my mother. I am 33 years old, because she is an insomniac and had been hearing about the little happenings going on so far. She thought what just happened was really cool, told me to embrace it and not be afraid. I knew she was right, because I never felt like I was in any danger. It just felt like someone was messing with me. From then on out, I slept with the lights on, though. It stayed pretty quiet for the next few weeks. Word got around to all the people whose temperatures I was screening that I was staying at the haunted hotel, and they would ask me daily if anything happened the night before. I had gotten used to the fact that Tanya had left me alone for the rest of my stay until I wanted ice one day. See, the ice machine was on the second floor. I went to the elevator to get my ice and noticed that the elevator was on the closed fourth floor. The elevator had one of those light things at the top that told you what floor it was on. Spooky, I thought to myself jokingly. I got on the elevator to notice that the button was already pushed for the second floor. I thought, weird. But easily explainable by any other person, so I didn't really think anything that much of it. I got off the elevator to get my ice on the second floor, and from the ice machine there's a little balcony where you can see down onto the first floor. I had a clear view of the elevator doors on the first floor as I was getting ice. I noticed that the elevator went down to the first floor, and the doors opened and closed. Again, I thought nothing of this. That is, until I got back on the elevator on the second floor, and saw that the button was already pushed for the fifth floor where I was returning. I was a little taken aback, but did not feel afraid this time. I just calmly said out loud, "What's up, Tanya? Don't touch my shit." If anyone has any similar experiences, I'd like to hear them. 2. My earliest memory of this thing was when I was 5 years old. I don't believe that was our first encounter. My mother told me of one when I was 8 to 10 months old. She was holding me while sitting on the couch in our living room. She says I turned and looked past her into the hallway, pointed and said, "Man." When my mother turned around, there was, of course, nothing. It was just the two of us in the house. But after looking around a bit, she found nothing out of place and assumed it was a creepy baby babble. At 5, I have my first actual memory. It was weekend night around 11 p.m., and I was laying in bed restless. I could hear both my parents snoring from other rooms, and the light from the living room TV shone on my open bedroom door. A slowly moving shadow of a man crossed into the night and began to walk down the hallway towards my room. I knew it couldn't be my parents or sister, both from the sounds of snoring and its shape. I was absolutely petrified as it methodically made its way down the hall, right as whoever was casting the shadows should have crossed the threshold of my door. There was nothing. The shadow went by, but nobody followed. The following years, I often had vivid nightmares which caused me to develop various fears, and I became fairly easy to frighten. I had nightmares before this visit, but they definitely ramped up in intensity and frequency after. After my 10th birthday passed, I was laying awake in bed after my mom had left my room, after telling me good night. I wasn't able to get to sleep due to the feeling of being watched. My eyes slowly scanned my dark room until it fell on my open closet door. The corner in which it sat was opposite from where my bed was positioned. I could feel something watching me from the darkness of the open doorway. As I focused harder on the area, I could make out a faint outline of a tall humanoid figure standing off to the side of the sliding door. My mind instantly recalled the memory of the shadow from half my lifetime ago. I sat in bed, petrified. I could only lay and stare at it, eyes wide open in fear. After what felt like an eternity passed filled only with our paranormal staring contest, its form melted back into the darkness. I didn't sleep at all that night. Now is probably a good time to give a full description of this thing. It stands about 7 feet tall with a slight hunch. It's built like a sickly 90-year-old man, with every bone being visible under its pale, leathery skin. Always has an uncomfortably wide smile filled with short, needle-like teeth. dark, sunken pits in place of eyes. Usually it brings a smell of body odor and old leather. His next visit came during the summer, about a month after my 15th birthday. I always kept my room freezing cold in the summer, and would often pull my blanket over my head and played on my phone while winding down before I went to sleep. I had one part of the blanket lifted up in front of my face to keep air circulating. As I was laying on my side, scrolling through my phone, I caught some movement through the gap in the blanket. Glancing past my phone, I squinted my eyes to see what had moved past my peephole. I saw it smile first as it stretched unnaturally wide across its face. Its black pits for eyes stared into me as I fully realized my paranormal stalker was mere inches away from my face. Dread and terror locked my body into place as my mind raced for a way out of this situation. I have no idea how long the two of us were locked in our romantic gazes, but I eventually settled on a plan of action. I threw my blanket off my body and prepared to vault my body past it into my door. As soon as the blanket was off me, it was gone. The feeling of its presence still lingered in the room, but I could no longer see it. I turned the lights on and stayed awake all night, too freaked out to sleep. Some of you may have noticed a pattern by now. Every 5 years he shows up and is a little closer to me. I was really concerned when I realized this because any closer and it would be touching me. Around this time, I also started suffering from constant migraines that would last for days or sometimes weeks at a time. As my 20th birthday came and went, I wasn't really as worried about this thing showing up as I was 5 years prior. I had moved out of my parents' place, and I didn't feel the heaviness that my childhood bedroom had. About 6 months after my birthday, my fear of it returned much stronger than before. I fell asleep that night without much trouble, but I had a pretty gnarly awakening. I woke up for seemingly no reason, and that old familiar feeling laid heavy in the room. I knew I was being watched, and when I tried to move to grab my phone, my body didn't respond. This actually made me feel a bit better. I'd been through sleep paralysis before, and I could do it again. I was afraid, but I knew it wasn't real. Then my body began shaking uncontrollably, and my vision went dark. When it returned, I was no longer in my bed. I was strapped to a stone table in a dimly lit room. I could faintly make out old carved stone walls and an iron door past my feet. I could smell iron and rot all around me. A figure loomed over me, and I immediately recognized my lifelong stalker. It finally made it to me, and I was at its mercy. It spent a long while just staring at me with hunger and malice. After some amount of time, it moved closer and began to slowly yet gleefully drag its claws over my body, slicing and tearing at my flesh. I could feel each motion as it effortlessly mauled me. Suddenly my vision flashed, and I was once again in my room, shaking and seizing violently. Every muscle in my body flexed and tightened to their absolute limits. Then as quickly as I was returned to my room, I was stolen away to a new place. I was on the floor of a cave. There was a light from a fire shining in from somewhere I couldn't see. It smelled damp and musty. Without missing a beat, my captor appeared over me and began his work anew, ripping and tearing into my body once again. My vision would then flash back to me seizing in my bedroom, then to the dungeon, then my room, then back to the cave. This cycle of torture went on for what felt like days. There was a final flash, and I was in my room, no longer seizing, light coming in from my window. At first I didn't even try to move. My body ached all over, my mind was mush, and my pillow and blankets were strewn about the room. I felt like I had been hit by a train, but like a demon train. After that night, I knew I'd never get rid of it. It had me now. All I could think about was what would come next. Was it satisfied now that it had gotten me? Would it come more often now? I had no idea what it wanted, where it came from, what its limits were. I was clueless and terrified. I've tried over the course of my life to figure out what this thing is to no avail. After that night, I began having nightmares every single night. I was pretty used to having a lot of nightmares at this point, so I wasn't too tore up about it. After all, I knew they were only dreams. But one night when I was 22, that changed. Since I noticed the 5-year pattern, I had become confident that it would only appear once after a 5th birthday. However, I was apparently wrong-ish. As I fell asleep, I was drawn into another nightmare. As I entered the dream realm, I had the most unsettling feeling of déjà vu. The place I found myself was all too familiar. I laid on a cold stone cave floor, the same cave where I was tortured 2 years prior. Before I could fully process that information, I saw it. Standing at the only tunnel out was my old buddy. It lunged toward me and wrapped one of its hands around my neck. His grip was surprisingly strong for his apparently measly muscles. It dragged me by my neck across the cave floor out into the tunnel. Once again, my body wouldn't respond to my commands. I could only watch as my limp body was taken somewhere. My airway was being crushed as it pulled me. My lungs screamed for oxygen. But even after several brutal minutes, my vision never darkened and I never blacked out. I had to consciously experience being choked without the bliss of passing out. Eventually, the tunnel led into a massive cave that seemed to stretch infinitely in every direction. As we went in further, I even heard screams, but I never saw anyone, human or otherwise. It felt like I was there for a few hours. I don't know how it ends. I either blocked that out unconsciously, or there just never was an end. I'm 24 now, and I honestly don't know what to do. I still have horrible nightly nightmares and migraines. I can feel it around me when I'm alone sometimes. I can even tell if it's one of my nightmares with me. They feel completely different from other dreams. It's a bit difficult to explain. I guess I'm here to ask what I should do, or just an opinion on what this thing is. I've honestly hit a dead end at this point. I don't even know if I want to get rid of it, as weird as that may sound. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have if I can. Thanks for your time. Three. I'm an atheist. I was raised Christian, and truly can't bring myself to believe in God. I genuinely can't, but that's a whole other story. Anyways, growing up, I've always had a deep fascination with ghosts, and being Latina, my family has always been superstitious. I'll tell of 3 stories, one of which is the most profound, and the other 2 were simple, but bone-chilling at the time. Encounter 1. I used to live in Colonial Heights, Virginia, specifically in Conjurer's Neck. The area is home to the old brick house, which I lived very, very close to, and was a battleground for both the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. The entire area has always given me the creeps as a kid, and the old brick house itself always had a local lore with the neighborhood kids. There's a million dead bodies in that house. If you go in, you'll fall through the floor and become a ghost, etc. One day I was riding my bike alone. I must have been around 6 or 7 years old, and I saw the neighborhood cat Moonlight sitting at the edge of her owner's driveway. She was the prettiest little black cat with white markings and would always allow me to give her a quick pet. This day she was spooked by me and ran back to the owner's house. Me, being a stubborn kid, I wanted to catch her and give her a pet. I got off my bike and led it up the driveway, not letting go of the sight of Moonlight. Once I get to the back porch area, I see the cat right underneath the porch and try reaching for her. I give up after realizing it isn't worth scaring her more with unwanted affection, and decide to head back to biking. When I stand up and turn to look toward my bike, this giant black figure was looming over me. It was pitch black and in the silhouette of a man. It didn't have features. Just imagine a blackened out thing, and that's what it was. The edges were clean lines. I stared straight at it for a good few seconds, which lasted an eternity in my mind, and immediately started crying, sprinting as quickly as I could to my mother, immediately telling her of what I just experienced. I realized I left my bike there and started crying out of fear that I'd have to get it. That the thing stole my bike, but my mom had sent my brother to get it. This was during the day, and I've never seen something like that since. I've always thought it was probably either just a Confederate soldier or a spirit of a native. There was a burial right by the brick house, but I don't know. It really scared me nearly to death. Encounter 2. I was living in Massachusetts with my mother and brother. Ever since the first day we moved in, I hated the house. It was a classic scary-looking house and had all the Hallmark haunted house tropes. My mom had her share of experiences in the house. I didn't have many, that I could remember, but on our last night living there, the three of us were in the kitchen. We were kind of just reminiscing on the time we had at the house. The kitchen connected to the living room through a hallway on one side and a doorway on the other where we stood. We couldn't see into it. We were going to sleep on the couches, since that was the only thing not packed, and my mother reminded my brother to close and lower the blinds so that no one could see us sleeping. He brushed it off and said he'd get to it later. A few minutes go by of us talking, and this loud bang comes from the living room. My mom freaks and my brother runs into the living room prepared to fight. He goes in guns blazing and goes completely silent once he's in the living room. We're both curious of what's going on and go in. He's standing a foot away from the doorway to the kitchen, staring at the 3 windows over the couches. All of the blinds were down. They were previously pulled all the way up, which was the way we had them for the majority of our days there. That had never happened before, and none of us talked about it. We simply went back to the kitchen and tried carrying on normal conversation. I didn't get much sleep after that. Encounter 3. I was living in my house in Florida. I moved a lot, as you can tell. And I was swimming in the pool in our backyard. I was home alone, and had just taken off my goggles. I set them on the pool fencing railing, which were to my right side, and hopped back into the pool. This was also during the day. I was swimming underwater and went back to the spot near where I put my goggles. My goggles suddenly fly to me and land right in front of me, coming from the complete opposite direction from where I put them. I got so scared, but I thought, maybe my parents got home. No one was there. The back door leading into the house was never opened, nor did I hear it close. I later looked around the house and no one was home. I have many more stories from that house. It's what started my episodes of sleep paralysis, but I won't get into it now. With all of these experiences, I don't understand how I can now simply not believe in God. I feel I have a pretty good idea of what happens after death, but not involve heaven or hell. Just a remembrance of the best and worst memories in life. I don't like the idea that something truly good could be sent to hell simply for not believing. If anyone can relate, please sound off. 4. This goes all the way back to when I was in middle school. It was Christmas Eve, and I was home alone, sick, upset stomach and no fever, on the couch in my family room watching Netflix. The couch is right across from the front door and a window. So when I'm home alone, I would open the basement door to block anyone from seeing me on the couch from the front door. It was maybe 7 or 8 p.m., and it was dark because it was winter. I was watching the TV when I heard a lot of creaking in the floorboards coming from the other side of the basement door. My house is known to make some weird noises, but this sounded like someone was walking. However, the door was blocking the hallway, so I couldn't see if anything was there. Instead, I paused the TV to hear the noise better, and it immediately stopped. I swear I could hear someone breathing. Scared to death, I sat frozen on the couch, after dismissing it as all in my head. I unpaused the TV to distract myself, still able to hear the creaking for a while longer. When my family came home a few hours later, I told them how freaked out I was by our creaky house. I told them about a dream I had a few nights before about a man that lived in a secret room in our basement. Jokingly, I said that I probably heard this man walking around the house. I went to bed that night pretty normally, although thoroughly freaked out. Many years later, I found out that what I said to my mom also scared her. She made my dad go into the storage room in my basement with a bat while they scoured every inch of it, finding nothing. To this day, mentioning it to my mother makes her uneasy. Over time, the man became an inside joke to my family. Whenever something went missing, we would just blame it on the man. Until it wasn't really funny anymore, a lot of stuff went missing. At first, it was mostly clothes and spoons and stuff like that, nothing too alarming. But then we noticed something bad. Out of a set of 8 steak serrated knives in our kitchen block, 6 had mysteriously gone missing. We joked that the man took them, but really my mom and I were worried. Where did the knives go? How do you lose 6 big knives? Eventually we stopped questioning it and just bought new knives. I'm writing this now, currently 6 years since the first encounter, because of a frightening experience that happened last night. I woke up in the middle of the night, feeling the slight urge to use the bathroom. It wasn't so bad that I had to go then, so I decided to just try and go back to sleep. I was stirring for a little while, and I didn't open my eyes yet. Finally, I decided to just get up. I opened my eyes and started to roll over towards the door when I heard a voice. Almost demonic, but most definitely male in my right ear. I felt as if he was only an inch away. I could feel the air from his mouth in my ear. I don't know what he said, but it was as if he put a spell on me. I immediately collapsed back to my left side away from the door. My eyes were glued shut and my body was numb. Even my mouth was gaping open. I never sleep with my mouth open, especially while on my side. I was conscious like this for maybe 10 seconds before I fell into a deep sleep. I woke up again, remembering every detail. I've passed out before, and it was not like that. I determined that not much time had passed. I could still feel the tingling in my ear from when he spoke in it, and I didn't really have to use the bathroom any more than I had before. I looked at the clock, and it was around 5 in the morning. I am certain this was the man. I don't know if he's a person, a ghost, or a demon, but I know he is real. I believe that he thought I was going to see him, and so he put me under a spell to go back to sleep. I told my mom this, and she was scared, saying that she would rather not know these things. So I'm here. What do you guys think of this? I was telling my family about the voice I'd heard, and we were talking about the man, and it turns out the reason my mom was so freaked out and made my dad go into the basement with a bat was because she also heard noises. Before she left for the party, and while I was asleep, she thought she heard footsteps on the stairs. No one else was home, and my cats were outside. She was scared, but didn't tell me about it. Also, my sister claims that when she was little, she would wake up in the middle of the night and see a dark male figure in the corner of the room. 5. Just to preface this by saying we've experienced a range of odd encounters in our old house, ranging from the mild to the weirder. Doors slamming, photos being knocked off walls and landing perfectly on their edge. Heavy New Rock boots being tossed across a room. The more worrying ones included me hearing somebody coughing at the foot of my bed when my partner was asleep next to me. The worst I experienced was when I felt my partner get into bed beside me after his night shift, only to discover it wasn't him and nobody was there. My partner also glitched from the foot of the stairs to the top, which freaked us out. I've heard voices multiple times in the old house too, calling my name. I've always had paranormal encounters since I was a kid, so these don't really bother me. So with that history in mind, this is the newest activity. We've moved house, literally across the road from where we were. And since we moved in, we've been bombarded with activity. The kids joke that the thing followed us from across the road, and I believe they're right. To date, we've experienced the following. The fridge door swinging open by itself, weirdly as it was a heavy vacuum seal, and you have to yank it open. We keep hearing noises in the attic as if something is pacing around. Worryingly, it tends to go in a pattern around your bed. 3 times I have seen a shadowy shape. The first time, it was just standing in our bedroom doorway. I dismissed it as my eyes playing tricks on me because it was so late. Until I saw it again when I was coming out of the bathroom. I saw a tall shadow absolutely race down the stairs into the hall as I exited the bathroom. The third time was worse in the bedroom, and I saw it while sitting on the couch with my stepdaughter. I saw a big black shadow just zip from the ceiling corner of the sitting room into the hall. My girl thought I was pranking her till she saw how weirded out I was, and that I was absolutely serious. My stepdaughter has seen her wardrobe door opening and closing itself, even with all the windows closed. She has also heard somebody pacing the hallway outside her bedroom. Recently, she had the bathroom lights flicker on and off when she was showering. My partner saw our tall houseplant shaking wildly back and forth, as if somebody was gripping and waving it around. No breeze or draft or any movements from us could replicate the movement, unless we physically shook it ourselves. Our hot press is at the top of the stairs, and both my partner and I heard the door opening and slamming shut multiple times. It stopped when we went to check it. The other day, my partner was upstairs, and I heard somebody else go up our stairs. I assumed it was our girl, and I brought up tea to both of them. I was beyond weirded out when I was told by my partner that he was the only one upstairs. Our girl was in the sitting room, and had been there the entire time. Our kitchen door sticks, so you really have to pull it hard to close it. We always close it, as sometimes the stray cats wander through our window. But twice I've heard the door creaking open by itself. This is impossible to do unless you give it a good push. We've caught bad, rotten, eggy smells occasionally. They come and go randomly. The most recent happened tonight. We were all watching TV, and we heard this loud thump in the wall behind my partner. He got up to check it wasn't something in the hall, and myself and our girl looked at each other. Once we did, we heard another noise coming from our kitchen. We've heard a lot of these since we moved in. So yeah, we're convinced something has followed us to our new home. The shadow shapes are totally new. We've never had those in the old place. We don't believe it means us harm. We've been freaked out but never scared. We've laughed at it being spooked with every noise in the house, but we do not believe it wants to hurt us. Even in the more intense experiences in the old house, we never got a malignant vibe from it. We joke that it must have been lonely, so came with us. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 242. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, and this time, instead of a regular comment or your favorite cheeses, thanks for that by the way, some interesting responses, tell me what your favorite kind of pasta is. I'm feeling hungry and I've had a hankering for pasta recently, so I want to see how adventurous you guys get. Right, now, the important pasta-related business is out the way. We have important shout-out business to do. No birthday shout-outs today, but I do want to give a little shout-out to the author of story number 4. Reddit user... Wilderberry. Okay. There was a missing letter there, it took me a second. Reddit user Wilderberry, thank you very much for letting us use your story, Wilderberry. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.